and welcome to this ET Now special. Recently, you saw the Prime Minister Narendra Modi launch what is called the e-Rupi. Think of it as a prepaid voucher built on top of the UPI, and it's come out with the folks that built the UPI, the NPCI. There are multiple partners, and in today's conversation, we've got a power-packed panel for you. First up, we have Praveena Rai, the COO of the NPCI that has built the e-Rupi, and we're also being joined by two partners of theirs from Kotak Bank as well as Pine Labs. From Kotak, we're being joined by Deepak Sharma, who is of course the Chief Digital Officer, and from Pine Labs, we're being joined by the Chief Business Officer, Kush. Welcome everybody to this special show. Thank you so much for giving us the time. Praveena, I'll come first to you because you're in charge of the e-Rupi. It's you folks at the NPCI that actually built it. A prepaid voucher is the best way perhaps to describe it, except it works on QR code, it works on feature phones. You don't need a smartphone for it. One of the biggest beneficiaries being seen for it is targeted subsidies. You can send the money, the subsidy to that person who actually deserves it and is supposed to be honored with the subsidy. Praveena, why is the e-Rupi a game changer?
No, we don't have an instrument like this, a payment instrument of this nature in the country. And I think it is going to meet a need and create so much opportunity to match supply and demand when it comes to organizations, people, government entities who want to sponsor and people who are in need of certain services. And this could cover an entire swath of them. We'll talk about it during the program. Most importantly, it unshackles the beneficiary from a requirement to necessarily have some form of an instrument. So, for example, today, if you look at a payment instrument like UPI, it operates on a smartphone. If it's a card, then you need to have a physical card. And there are certain challenges in the last mile when we want to really reach the potential of serving 1.3, 1.2 billion people. So here we have a mechanism by which the delivery really is unshackled. It can happen through just a digital QR or a digital message, right? So it addresses every potential feature phone user. Further, it makes it targeted. So it is both person-specific and purpose-specific. So rather than current instruments who really look at it as general purpose use, it's more like cash in the hand of people. Rather, targeted programs can be run for the people who need it as well as the purpose for which they need it. So that's why we're really excited about this, along with the entire ecosystem, who's done a great job in going live in a very short while. And it's just the birth of the instrument. I think we have a lot more to do here.
Okay, so let's pick all that up one by one. Deepak, I'm going to come to you now. Not only does a smartphone is not needed, even a bank account is not needed, right? That's what the entire philosophy behind the e-Rupi as well is. How will the integration happen at the back end, at the bank, and what does this mean for the banking landscape?
I think as the name says, e-Rupi, right? So it's an electronic form of the currency. And I think this, in many ways, it democratizes and it decentralizes the whole chain through which money used to flow. And I would call it as an electronic form of rupee for a very simple reason that when you keep cash, you really don't need to manage a lot of other peripheral stuff like Praveena was talking about. And I think this starts to bring in, initially with vaccine, but I think for targeted purposes, it makes the system far more seamless and easier for a cash-free India. That also means that the end consumer probably can start relying more and more on electronic form of payment, thereby reducing the need of cash at different point of consumption. And it definitely helps financial institution because as we are investing on the infrastructure, building the digital fabric for the country, we all want to see a less use of cash. And this, in my mind, over a period of time, as more and more use cases get unlocked, will become probably a very, very powerful way in which any end consumer, it can be even a child who has to use it for pocket money, or probably for not just the subsidies that we spoke about, but any form of payment can ride on this e-Rupi railroad. So I think we all need to see the long-term prospect of this. And I think over a period, as the community banks, non-banks, NPCI, fintechs, they come together, I think you will see this taking our digital transaction probably many folds from where we are today.
So before I quickly go across to Kush, and I want to get the merchant's perspective as well, Deepak, just because I don't want to lose the flow. From what you're telling me, this is going to help also bank the unbanked. Have I got that right?
Absolutely, because I think, as I said, I mean, right now you don't need the plastic or a card or a branch. You can move money to remotest of the corner for a particular purpose, and there will be an infra through which the end consumer can use that money.
Okay. Kush, thanks so much for joining us. So, let's talk to you a little bit about the merchant's perspective. First of all, is there going to be any extra charge for the merchant? Will they lose money when you're going to see the e-Rupi being used? And tell us what's the sense on the ground? Has it been rolled out? Are merchants open to it?
So I think to begin with, I feel this is really like a technology first solution that has been rolled out. We feel that this is going to be a game changer for more than one opportunity, which is to begin with redemption of vouchers for vaccination. Let me give you a perspective, like you asked, more from the life of a merchant. So India's got a very large spread of retailers, which now goes beyond tier 1 cities. As we speak and work with merchant partners, today merchants are digitized in tier 3, tier 4, semi-urban, rural markets as well. For them, I would say, they embrace any solution that comes their way where, there is a customer who walks in, has, a voucher, for example, e-Rupi, and has a simple mechanism through which, the voucher could be presented and redemption could be done. If I'm a merchant, the first thing that comes to my mind is, hey, I'm reopening my store post all this, impact of COVID. It starts to build footfalls, right? Because somebody with a specific purpose is walking into my store, right? And I'll give you examples. So e-Rupi today starts with vouchers for vaccination. So all your healthcare, hospital merchants, are absolutely embracing and opening up to it. But then as this use case develops to, let's say, offering anything which is, food subsidies, offering solutions which could be like, scholarships at, institutes and, colleges, offering other healthcare services, there are hundreds and thousands of retailers who are willing to become partners in this journey with the, agencies and the government by saying, great, our doors are open. We'd love to have this, solution developed in the store. You get them to redeem the voucher, but alongside that, you also have an opportunity to sell other products as a retailer and do more commerce, right? So I feel this is highly complementary, very seamless, gives access. I think Deepak was mentioning about the banking side. I think there are some, 200 million unbanked, people in our country, right? And you don't need a bank account. All you need is a mobile phone and it works. So I feel a great step forward and has a lot to build on top.
Okay, so you all think it's a game changer. It's tech first, once again, that's coming out from India for the rest of the world. Praveena, is e-Rupi really just going to stop as the primary use for direct benefit transfer as far as subsidies go? How can this evolve? Is this a test case for something bigger that's about to come?
Yes, so Nayantara, I want to talk about the timing that we have here, right, and why it was important for us to take this with such pace to the market. The whole world and certainly India is recovering from the second wave of the pandemic. Fingers crossed that we don't hit any more waves of that nature. But it's very important for us to drive economic activity and to help people, get back on their feet. It's businesses and merchants on one side, and certainly citizens on the other, especially people who've, probably been impacted adversely during this entire phase. So the benefits being targeted towards this end will really be the priority for the country. And it will not just be government benefits. Certainly, the government is looking at many ways, and I'm sure there'll be many schemes that will come on this instrument. But this is open to everybody. This is open to large corporates to use their CSR programs. We've created the platform that can be used by anyone who wants to donate, who wants to sponsor. We saw it during the pandemic. So many organizations, people put up their hand to support others, support not just their near and dear, but really support society at large. Whether it is somebody serving up food, assistance. We all know it, right? All of us have made calls for oxygen cylinders and beds and whatever have you. So it's really taking that forward to say that this is now available as a platform for anyone who wants to support somebody for a particular purpose. And it started off with vaccines. Corporates have already come in, and we are looking at that kicking in, where there are sponsors on one side who are providing the vouchers, which will reach beneficiaries who then take it to vaccination centers to support vaccination. So really, supply of vaccination at private clinics and private the healthcare vaccination centers, that will be the first use case, and that is the first use case. But let's take it into healthcare, right? Healthcare is certainly the number one priority in everyone's mind. And this will be a space, Kush spoke about it, so whether it is pharmacies, hospitals, diagnostic centers, all of these areas, and there are, the government departments are looking at this, but this is a space that a number of corporates can support for healthcare services to the needy. Food is another big sector, and we know that, again, there is a lot of activity that comes from donors and sponsors and CSR activity. And of course, there are government programs that can then come onto this platform. There could be a fertilizer, there is education. So I think we are really at the tip of the iceberg. And this will take ways and shape that have not yet been imagined. While the government is certainly one of the parameters, but this is really open to everybody. And I think the corporate sector will certainly play a very critical and important role here.
Okay. So we've set the base for that. And Deepak, lean in with your expertise. How can the e-Rupi be used, be scaled up, and go beyond what it has just been envisaged from? We've just heard Praveena list out a whole bunch of opportunities, but she's also talking about the role corporates can play. What can private banks also do as partners?
I think e-Rupi, just like UPI, is just the beginning of a platform. So if somebody would have asked 3 or 4 years back, where would UPI go? Probably it was very difficult for each one of us to answer. But I think what happens in any typical ecosystem play is that different participants, they come together and they start thinking of how to build new use cases and solve problems. In my mind, e-Rupi is something very similar. We probably are at the very initial stage, but just like Praveena highlighted, I see there are multiple use cases. I think the biggest of all in my mind, I would put it is in a way a stored value for purpose, mass distribution-led ecosystem that is got created through this. The question now is what all can ride on this. So I think as some use cases with both Kush and Praveena spoke, I think we can keep thinking beyond it. There's just about imagining how money or in form of the cash can be replaced through this without a need of an intermediary bank account. And I think the moment I look at it, for example, a domestic remittance in India, it's huge. If we start looking at the movement of money within the country, and it's just not subsidy, people who are sending money to their families, relatives, you want to make sure that and the person who's receiving it probably does not even have a bank account. So I think we just need to start thinking of unbanked, different targeted use cases And just like any of our previous success stories that have come out of India, I think it's again something where the tech players, the market makers, the regulators, they've all joined hand together. And I'm quite upbeat, as I said, because we probably will see many opportunities coming out of corporates, from banks, from even individuals, even probably people who are giving donation or charity.
Kush, if I can come to you, one of the things you keep hearing about, vendor payments being held up. Can this empower vendors to maybe not deliver till they're not paid?
No, absolutely. I think you're right? So, I mean, at the end of the day, I feel that we feel that this is something which is highly inclusive, right? So, you can pretty much bring in all kinds of, service providers in the value chain to participate, right? And actually take benefit out of it. Where I feel that, I feel the beauty of the whole, the platform solution is that, this is really the first time that you see a convergence. And when I say convergence, what it means is that there was always a parallel network of retailers and merchants, and let's say give or take about 10 million merchants we have already now in the country and growing very fast, which would largely help you, let's say, trade in goods and products and services and make payments, right? But when it came to access for services, corporate, allowances, government-led programs such as what we are talking about, there was a completely different area, different universe, different set of people, the citizens of the country had to go and, knock on their doors for, right? What has happened through this is that we've actually integrated the power of the merchant network across the country to also double up for offering these services. So the way I envisage the future is going to be that each time we bring a new merchant on board, I am not going to be signing a merchant up only for the purposes of accepting digital payments. I would also have a playbook that would say that, hey, these are the 10 additional services that are already embedded. And the moment you open your store, you can start inviting all these CSR, corporate, government-related services as a touch point for helping them, redeem and get value out of. So I feel that this is something that can really fast-track the growth of the whole digitization drive that the country is, taken as a project.
And Praveena, you've given some great examples of whether it is government-led essential services, non-essential services, and also thrown the ball in the corporate's court on how they can actually leverage the e-Rupi. Now, you and I have discussed in the past, for example, that the next big wave of growth for the UPI is going to come when we move away from smartphones, whether it is feature phones. You have also been looking at voice-enabled feature payments. You've looked at SMSs as well. So is this the future? This is the way to go? Is this the next wave of growth?
So Nayantara, I just love this conversation, So once a platform is truly made, when the three of us are giving suggestions for future growth, which are so unique and yet so connected, right? So Kush is really opening up the entire what's in it for the merchant piece, and Deepak is imagining stuff that goes way beyond donations and sponsorships to say, this can actually become a core instrument. So this is a fantastic discussion, and that's really the power of what we can do with e-Rupi. And it's very difficult to say whether this is the game changer or is it going to be, feature phone payments. I think what all of us do in the ecosystem is to keep looking at the spaces of need gaps that we need to address. And the genesis, like I said, of e-Rupi, came from the thought of how do we really help people coming out of the pandemic. It came from the ecosystem, right? So I think there is no single credit to who really delivered this. So really, this is to say, look, feature phone is a problem statement. People want to make payments, and why should that be a service that only a smartphone user enjoys today? So of course, so we've got to do it. And here we solve for another one, which says, unshackle instrument, and just put a very purpose a specific voucher in somebody's hands. So I think we all of us together will have to keep solving these problems, and when we address this, there'll be something more that needs to come up. But both of these will see a lot of traction, and it'll take a few years for us to see the power of what this can actually deliver as more and more innovation happens at the last mile, and players bring all their might behind this, both market might and technology might and innovation heads to it. That's really what I think we will see as we go forward.
Deepak, coming to you now, you talked about how the unbanked can be banked via this. You've given some fantastic examples, like for example, for remittances, that was a great example of how the e-Rupi can also be used. Now, the other part of e-banking, of payment transactions, and what made UPI so successful was also the security that came around it. So when this integration takes place, the cybersecurity or somebody getting access to QR codes, are you convinced that there is enough around it? You don't need to do whether it's a soft KYC requiring an OTP and this, that, and the other. Just the QR code is good enough and it protects all users?
So I would always say security is something that needs to be evaluated over a period of time. It's not a one-time you do it all and you say it's secure. So I think today as we speak, for the use cases that has gone live, for the kind of amount, validity of the voucher, one-time use, traceability, I would say there is a reasonable amount of security which gives both the merchant, user, and the rest of the ecosystem comfort that those controls are built in place. Simply because it's going on a registered mobile number, so you do know who's going to use it. You also just don't rely on that mobile number, which obviously is KYC compliant today, but you also have an OTP, which is the user has to give at the time of redemption. So you also ensure that the control resides with the user and it's not picked up by someone, because even if for that matter, someone else happens to get access, needs to also know or have that device or OTP at the point of redemption. And obviously there is a validity. So it's not that that amount is open forever. And the last, as I mentioned, is there is a traceability. So I think unlike a lot of cases where the cash just moves out and you can't trace, you do trace the whole chain. And I think this is reasonably strong to start with. But yeah, I think as we move probably much higher value transactions, as we build more use cases, we can always go back and say, hey, listen, do we need to add additional layer of security? And that's how we keep all building any product, as you say, over a period of time.
And Kush, tell our viewers, has this gone live? Has Pine Labs been reaching out to the various merchants you have? You're one of the partners of the NPCI as far as this initiative goes. You're one of the largest fintech companies out there. You're also trying to do, of course, credit on UPI and all that. That's a separate conversation. But what's the response been?
Yeah, so I think firstly, we are very privileged that that we were chosen as one of the partners in this initiative. And like I said, that, merchants specifically here, obviously we've started with healthcare, which is largely going to be, those touch points which are, healthcare providers such as hospitals, offering vaccination services. I would tell you that, the moment the news got out, in the sense, once, this was, the publicly announced, we started to actually have a beeline of, of our partners in terms of, our merchants, and especially I would say, not as much as the very large, organized structured chain of healthcare providers, but actually the guys which are one level lower, or as you call them, the SME, mid-market space of healthcare providers who are, extremely eager to start opening up this channel, because they feel that first and foremost, like I said, right, it's built on tech rails, right? So it is a very seamless flow. For them, it's not time consuming. You don't have to go to 5 different places and, kind of do an authentication of who this voucher user is. And then once you've given the service, you're struggling to, kind of do a reconciliation and claim for the money that has to come to you, because it is so, seamless as a journey, as a product solution, that all healthcare providers who are in this ambit of offering, vaccination services, I tell you, across the country are calling us up and are getting onboarded. So I feel that this gives us the confidence that, like we spoke, all three of us have spoken, that this is just the start, right? And once you build on this, you would start to see that this entire ecosystem of retailers in the country would want to become participants. Because I would say all these years people would have a bit of a hesitation, right, in terms of when you wanted to become a participant in a mainstream government service, because they said there is more work, there is more effort. We'll have to understand how the dynamics work. But by actually demonstrating that this is a 5-second journey, right, from start to end, and it actually kind of fully integrates, and there is authentication, and your money comes in, there's reconciliation available, they start treating it like a mainstream service, right? And I feel that would help us really open up the doors for doing a lot more in the coming future.
Point I wanted to add to what Kush said. The demand from the market and ecosystem has been phenomenal, giving all of us a lot of very positive reaffirmation of the steps that have been taken. And one of the elements that has added to this comfort is also that if somebody wants to donate, let's say for a particular purpose, and that purpose, you're unsure about what that value is going to be, it's possible to create a voucher for a higher value. Let's say vaccination, we don't know, is it 500 rupees, 700, 800, but you can create a voucher for 1,500 rupees. And the actual value gets used and the balance gets credited back to the payer or the donor. So I think that's one of the elements that's also giving people a lot of comfort on both sides, the payer as well as the merchant beneficiary, in terms of the comfort of how funds are managed, the control over the actual transaction, as well as the success and trust over the transaction.
Okay, that's also very important to know, that you can top up with a lot more money and still have money left over, which is of course necessary. It's very difficult to always give the exact amount, right? And with that, we're completely out of time. So I'd like to thank all my three panelists for joining us here on ET Now to talk about the next big thing from the NPCI after UPI is betting big on the e-Rupi. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Thank you.